there's a big huge tank on top, and it is a concentrate, so they do cut it, and then from the tank, the tube that comes down and it swings into a 90, and there's probably the head of the end of that 90 that goes into water is probably this big around, and it's perfed. And all they do is they just go through, and that Procelicor liquid just pretty much flows out and just covers the milfoil, and once it covers it, sticks to it. So that's what's unique about it, that it's almost like using if you're using a herbicide to kill your lawn and stuff, it sticks to that milfoil and it just disintegrates it. So it was applied in an airboat, and they said they also saw no decline in native vegetation or any type of issues dealing with fish. The town of Caraga, with 1980s, they've been harvesting since the 1980s, and up until 1990s, they were not having any success at all. It was still lurching throughout the entire water process. So they treated 37 acres, and that was done on 6/17/24. And this is unique with this data. 6/17/24, they treated 37 acres, and 6/20/24, all milfoil was gone. 3 days. Cuyahoga Lake, 27. There was 27 sites that were identified having milfoil. With the treatment process, it went down to zero sites. Highland Forge Lake, which is in Willsboro, it was infected in the year of 2000. Hand harvesting was not working; it was actually making it worse. In 2024, they did 10.4 acres, and that treatment was done on 6/30/24. 3 days later, there was no survival of milfoil. Lake George, 1980s, that's when they started the harvesting. In 1990, they had limited success with hand harvesting because basically it wasn't being done correctly and it was spreading. So they did a trial area of 7.5 acres, and with that, the 2 areas, one was 7.5, one was 3.6. And in 3 days, there was no more milfoil present in those 2 test acres. Blair's Bay was another area that they treated. That was the second area, and they also deemed that as a successful treated area. They are going to still continue to, in the very small segregated areas in Lake George where there's not a lot of boat traffic, they are going to continue with hand harvesting. So overall, what the biologist said is that the Procelicor does work. Yes, it's expensive, but what you get from it basically makes you almost want to put the treatment into the water, especially with lakes as deemed as ours at one time was one of the cleanest lakes in the Adirondacks. So in 2025, Chateauguay Lake has already put another permit in. Mountain View Lake has put their permit in, and Cuyahoga Lake has put another permit in to do some more of the Procelicor treatment. But they're saying that they think the price will go down because there's a lot of chemical companies watching what Procelicor has done. So they think that there's going to be other companies that are going to try to mimic the Procelicor treatment chemical and price compete with Procelicor to drop that price down. But overall, I'd have to say that this Aaron Ziman was extremely positive about using the Procelicor. They had a lot of initial upfront complaints. Like for instance, they had one complaint where there was 3 or 4 fish were seen floating. I think it was in Lake George, and he said we get on that right away because we know how sensitive that is to the public. When we went out and saw those fish, it was done from fishing, not from Procelicor. So I just want to give you that update about that. And the other unique thing about the Adirondack Park Agency, after I told them about the information I had, it wasn't 3 weeks later there was an harassment lawsuit launched against the APA executives for harassment. So I didn't realize the APA people were unionized, and there was 28 out of 35 that pressed charges against the executive board for harassment techniques. So more to come on that, I guess. But I just want to give you that update on Priscilla Core. You know, we don't know what the cost is to do this lake, but you know, we've been going back and forth about lowering the lake, hand harvesting, Priscilla Core.
Well, I know last year the hand harvesting, whoever, the one that they had doing it near the dam, Denise said so much, of
Debris?
well, so much of the milfoil was washing up next to the dam because she wasn't strong enough to pull it out properly, and so she basically was just, it was just
That's
all
something
over.
that we maybe ought to address as a town and the board, that unless you have, you've been to the school, learned how to professionally hand harvest this, that you're not allowed to hand harvest this on this lake.
Yeah,
Because
the other-
it has the potential to make it worse. Why would we wanna let somebody go out there and do that?
Exactly. The other thing that Aaron said that, he says, really, if you got a milfoil problem, you really need to buoy off those sections and keep the boats out of it, because once the boats go through it, and if it floats and gets down to the bottom, it just regrows again. But he said what's interesting about the Priscilla Core, and he thinks there's going to be more chemicals coming like it. We just got to see what they are and what their rate is for success. Is that this will help stop a lot of lakes that have the ability to control their levels up and down, right? Like we do every 3 years. We've been doing a freeze. If we do this Priscilla Core, that'll all go away.
Is there any potential side effects to this? You say it sticks to the plant dies, goes to the bottom. Now, obviously, I mean, over time, that plant will disintegrate, but does that chemical, does that like flush away eventually?
So, yeah, that's a good question. That was raised. He brought that up in his report, and they're seeing right now, granted that it's new, and they're seeing that there's no residual that's affecting the lives of participants that want to go in and swim 3 or 4 or 5 days later. They said there is a moratorium. Listen, stay out of the water for 3 days where that is applied, but after that, they don't see anything that's going to harm anything to do with water quality or even people that want to swim in that area.
And they do say that, I know with Chateauguay Lake, they said, the stuff is going to die, because what Priscilla Core does is it's an enzyme that mimics the growth enzyme of the milfoil. So it gets to it and basically it dies at old age. It like makes it get old really fast and die. So they said if it washes up on your shore, don't put it in your compost pile because it still has Priscilla Core in that, and your compost pile is not going to grow anything. So, there's a couple things like that, but they said that, after 3 days, they can test the water, and there's no sign of Priscilla Core.
So if the fish were to eat that, I mean, it's not like it's long lasting.
No, they've all done that study on that. So, I think as we move forward with this lake, I think it'd be advantageous for us to have Aaron Zyman come down and educate
I think so.
the population of this lake on Priscilla Core.
Because there's a lot of people who are, you're going to put chemicals in the lake. It is a chemical, but it's a chemical that's designed to mimic a natural substance, that growth enzyme that's in the.
Yeah, and what Aaron also said, he says, if there was one lake that microscopically ran us through our process, it was Lake George. Think about Lake George, right?
Yeah, they had.
Yeah,
They had injunctions against it. They had
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, but
that was my concern, to be the long-term effects of it in the lake. Yes, it does what it's supposed to do, but do we pay the cost in 5 years, 10 years? Do we
Yeah,
start seeing
no
this,
doubt.
that? The other thing, oh geez, we didn't discover this. It took 5 years for this half-life to happen, or whatever goes on with with science and Mother Nature. That being one issue, and again with the harvesting of it, is that something that should be looked at a lot closer, so that you've got college students basically that are doing this,
Different kids every year.
different kids every year that have virtually no training at all. They're just, they're divers. They're learning how to dive. To pull milfoil and to do it right. We probably made this, X times worse by having that happen.
well, what's good is that it only grows in in the littoral zone that it grows in. It's got to be between like
Depth of water.
4 and 8 feet. There's a specific thing. That's why I could never understand why they thought the drawdown was helping because you draw the lake down, well, now 4 feet is further out and 8 feet's further out. So now you've put the turtle zone there,
Right.
and when the water comes up, oh, now I can go here. So now you've got, 16 feet of a bank instead of
Mhm.
8 feet of the bank. So, but I keep in touch with Minerva often, asking how it's going, because I have that same question, are you seeing anything detrimental?
Right.
And when they first did the application, the only thing that they saw on their native, they've got a small lake, 100 acres, but the only thing they saw was their lily pads had a little bit of brown around the edges, but then it cleared up.
Clear right up.
It was, and that's a big fishing lake. A lot of people go there to fish, and so there's been no effect to the wildlife, to the fish. Once in a while, they'll see milfoil pop up that someone probably brought in on their boat, and because they still go around and they still patrol. They have a boat that they go around, and if they see it, it's easy enough to pull up 1 or 2 plants and just keep your eye on it and keep doing it. And theirs has been done now for probably 8 or 9 years. And they said, eventually they might have to reapply down the road if they don't stay on top of it and catch those single plants that are coming up. But,
So it's basically a one and done, for
Yeah.
the most part.
Pretty much, that's what they're saying.
instead of spending $25,000, $50,000 a year on hand harvesting and all that, you spend a big amount once,
Do it, get it done.
and then you just patrol, and
Right.
and you make sure that people are washing their boats, and you make sure that, you can control it that way. But, Seam Bay is bad. That side of the lake is
Well, yeah,
bad.
that's very shallow, a
Yeah,
lot of
and so
shallowness in there.
they're perfect for the zone, but, I have people that live on that side of the lake who, even though they've got all that milfoil, they don't want the lake lowered because it's just like out here when the frost comes up out of the ground and it makes it all soft.
Yeah.
That's what happens in the lake. So then now your lake frontage, you step in it and you're in muck that deep because the ice is, the frost has come out of the ground basically, and
Yeah.
now you've got a foot of muck to step into instead of hard surface. And I have noticed it's like that at my folks, and I have noticed the last few years, you don't have all that muck. You step onto solid ground. So,
The other thing I did not know, and that they're gonna up their head count by 5 people. They got approved by our governor. But the other thing I was really stunned about with the economy of our state right now is they're gonna build a brand new APA building.
Yeah, they're working on it, yeah, there's where and how much, and there's.
And if you see the one they're in, it's a nice building. It just blows my mind.
It fits the area, I know that.
Blows my mind what we spend money
It's
on.
just bad, I don't know why you want to get rid of that.
So anyway, just wanna give you an update on that.
well, thanks. That's I think that was probably videotaped, so I'll have to check and look on.
If we can get a copy of that video to show that diver pro and after, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Okay.
Most of the milfoil in this lake is confined to the new lake, let's call it, since the dam has come in, that's where the earth is, that
Mhm.
Mother Nature hadn't taken away,
Right, and, and they're always, where the old shoreline is, right, it's like, and that's where the hand harvesting was done poorly last year, and when we had that meeting last fall about the drawdown, I pointed that out to Mark Denacor at the time, that, his divers were doing more damage than good.
Yeah, he didn't want to hear that.
No.
Granted, yeah, you're trying to do something good, but if you can't do it right, maybe you don't do it at all, you know what I mean? Let's do it the right way, or don't do it at all, because, we don't know if it was helping or hurting, it's one of the things that,
They do pull a lot of milfoil out,
If you're
thousands.
pulling out 10 pieces and you got 10 pieces that are floating around, all of a sudden, you got 20 pieces growing over there.
Yep,
You know?
and I don't think they knew how to use the dash unit, that they're supposed to be like pulling it and putting it right into this vacuum.
Right, to a vacuum.
And I don't know what was happening there, but, anybody have anything else? Going once, going twice? Okay, meeting adjourned, thank you very much.
Oh, God.
we should